Trae. Come on, it's the day with Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make the thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your guest host, Omari Salisbury, filling in all this week for my good buddy Trae on a holiday, who's getting some well-deserved time off. You know, Trae, probably one of the hardest people, well, yeah, she hard, all right, but she's probably one of the hardest working people that I know. And not just what she does here at Converge, but like, she really is the community queen, man. I mean, you see her out in the mix all across the community in different spaces and municipalities. When I looked up, I'm like, you know, she's in Snohomish counties, down in Pierce County, Thurston, you know, and on the block in the CD. You know what I'm saying? So big shout out to Trae. I hope that you are enjoying your time off. And Trae will actually be back next week. She has a jam-packed week next week before she ends the season. And I mean, what are we gonna do, Eric? Relax. he said relax. He's a wild one. Really excited today. I have my good friend and Indigenous rights lawyer, Gabe Galanda, who is in the building. Gabe has actually, he's got a history here. Gabe goes all the way back to the morning update show. And so some years ago, where he's been sharing with us news and information and pressing issues within the Native American community here in Puget Sound and also specific areas as well. I got a lot to talk to Gabe about, but one of the first things we're going to talk about, because there's so many other things going on, one of the first things we're going to talk about is, you might remember Converge Media's film, Nooksack 306, and that was the film that actually, it was a short documentary about the disenrollment that was occurring up there, and I think it's possibly still occurring up there on the Nooksack Reservation, which is just east of Bellingham. And for you guys that might not remember, you got this trailer keyed up over there. We're going to play the short trailer of it and talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to talk about a few other things. So we'll play the trailer first.
The disenrollment has affected me in ways that just go back to our birthright, our identity being stripped.
They found out about this disenrollment because all this money casinos generate.
Today, the latest or last chapter of the saga concerned the threatened physical ejectment of as many as 21 Nooksack families from their homes.
I know who I am, I know where I come from, and I'm grounded in that.
We're going to be here for generations to come. They can't get rid of us.
So that film, Nooksack 306, released last year, went on to actually earn an Emmy nomination earlier this year. Didn't take home the statue, but it'll just tell you it's a lot of films in that category, and to be one of the 5 that were nominated really means a lot to us at Converge and the work we did there. Big shout out to the people that worked on that film. Brady McAtee, Ike Everhart, Winfield Ezell Jr., Winfield Ezell III, Sean Cokes, Jordan Somers. But the issue of really where Gabe came on the radar here at Converge was around that issue of disenrollment. And so now that we've played the trailer and given some context to the audience, Gabe Galanda, welcome to the Day with Trae.
Oh, so good to be back. Thank you for having me.
No, it's good, man. Good to be here, brother. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have to start putting the photos up from over the years and seeing how we aging, man.
It's been a few.
Yeah. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's also important that we do spend some time on it. Just 2 main things that I want to touch on with Nooksack 306 is, 1, if you can explain what disenrollment is, and now 2, we're on the other side where, we're going into almost a year. I think it was about a year. It was right before Thanksgiving, a few months before, when we released that film, as to what's the status now.
Yeah, so disenrollment is the elimination of an Indigenous person's citizenship in their tribal nation. And disenrollment was originally invented by the United States government in the late 1800s to eradicate white settlers that ended up on tribal rolls. But it's unfortunately been used over the last 30 years primarily to get rid of Indigenous people, meaning tribal politicians getting rid of their own people in order to concentrate gaming wealth and power. It's essentially a colonial device that Indigenous people are wielding against each other to finish the job of eradicating Indigenous people.
Yeah, and we see that played out, or we saw that play out up there on the Nooksack. And it was, like I said, it was just over or just under a year ago when this film came out. Then it was court proceedings, and then the tribal court, which you were actually banned from being able to practice and represent your clients there on the reservation, actually ruled for eviction, right?
Actually, there was a ruling by tribal judges, despite their own ethics, that affirmed the evictions. And you basically had a tribal court judge rule that the evictions were proper when the families had no lawyer to contest the matter. And then he turned around and sat on the appeals that those families filed to the Tribal Court of Appeals, meaning he considered his own ruling as the trial court judge, and as you might expect, affirmed his ruling. And at that point, their fate were sealed, and they lost their homes in the coming weeks and months over the course of last year's holidays and into the new year.
Yeah, I remember that the order was supposed to go out the day after Thanksgiving or something like that.
Yeah, the first wave of the last set of evictions started right over Thanksgiving weekend. It was actually the day after Thanksgiving that the United Nations intervened. I don't think coincidentally, because it was here a national holiday, saying please don't do this. They actually pled with the Biden administration to stop the evictions, and that still didn't do it.
So people were evicted from their homes, evicted from their property. I don't know if you know where everybody is, of course, but like how did a lot of people settle out once evicted?
Yeah, so these last 7 or 8 households, they represented 306 relatives who over the course of 12 to 13 years, meaning dating back to 2012, were fighting for their existence and to remain connected to their homelands. So those 7 or 8 homes actually represented sort of the last tangible connection between generations of this family and their ancestral homelands and place of belonging. And that's what they were fighting so hard for. Those were also homes that were owed to them, meaning deeds were owed to those families under a federal rent-to-own program, and those promises that were made both by the federal government and tribe were promised. The irony is that they were ultimately taken in to homes built in Whatcom County by a First Nation that they have a kinship connection with. All of these relatives at Nooksack, they were also part of families in British Columbia before there was a U.S.-Canadian border. So there are kinship ties running up to those people in southern British Columbia, and through those ties, one First Nation saw what was happening at Nooksack and said, we are not going to let those folks go homeless. They were developing homes for their own people that live in Whatcom County, and once those people were displaced, they brought them in. I don't believe they're promised ownership, but they at least brought them in to make sure that they weren't homeless. So there's irony that the United States, which should be providing homes, especially under the promises it made through a federal program, and then the tribe, which historically has never let anybody be homeless, meaning Nooksack, they allowed that to happen. But these relatives from British Columbia, in a beautiful and ironic way, came in and made sure those people were not left displaced completely.
Right. And I wanted to tell you that this case didn't quite work out the way that you wanted to. You spent over a decade working with these families and just doing what's right, and you went all over America all over here, of course, the state of Washington, from the local government to the state legislature. You petitioned the Secretary of the Interior, and then the last one was actually the first Native one, Deb Haaland. You went to the Biden administration. You went to the United Nations. Although you didn't get the final result you wanted, I wanted to commend your effort. I mean, you gave your very best, and it's something that we really don't see against insurmountable odds, that a lot of people would say. And so the heart and the dedication that you've given, and I'm sure you still continue to give to the Nooksack, I just really want to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. I mean, I got to be honest, when the last home was taken, when Liz Ashiro was forcibly removed from her home on camera, being filmed by USA Today, and I saw that, I was sad. I wept. And it took me actually till very recently to sort of grieve that defeat and that loss and that injustice. But it feels good to hear you recognize the advocacy. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to tell that story. And Eric, Nooksack screened it at Scope Screenings, man. They came down deep as Scope Screenings and everything, and it was a powerful moment for them to see their story on the big screen.
Oh, you're not kidding. I mean, love to Converge, love to, is it Lex?
Yep, Lex.
Brother
Scope.
Lex, love to the Scope family. That was an amazing night. Capitol Hill, line out the block, huge energy in the auditorium, showed that movie for 30 minutes, just tons of goodwill and good feeling, and the family felt it.
Yeah. Somebody was like, yo, man, they had to come down to the Central District to actually get somebody to tell this story.
Yeah.
Which was dope, man. So, man, what else is going on? It's Native American history, heritage. I don't want to get it wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's a Native American month, but that's not why you're here. You're here because I was like, yo, I'm filling in for Trae, and I think it's important we catch up. But that being said, man, what other issues? What's going on in this Native ecosystem, especially around here in Puget Sound, or the state of Washington?
Hard times. Tribes are being particularly hit hard by what's happening in Washington, D.C. It started with Doge and the eradication of a lot of federal programs and services to help Indigenous people survive, including health care. And those budget cuts have hit the Indian Health Service really hard, and people are not being provided the health care they need to get healthy, to heal, to survive, to live. And so we are just seeing the beginnings of the ramifications of the loss of federal health care, at least as tribal people have known it for the last several decades. And then this SNAP benefit and the shutdown, that hit tribal communities really, really hard. There are a lot of people living on reservations that depend on that program, and those benefits were gone. Food was gone, and tribes had to react on their heels to figure out how they're going to feed their people. And I have tribal chairmen that were out giving out food to their people on the front line just to make sure that people were not starving. So that has sent shockwaves. Those sort of federal decisions by people both in the Trump administration and on the Hill have sent shockwaves to Indian country and really disrupted and affected and hurt Indigenous lives.
Right. I think that it might also be important as well to give context for people here in the Seattle area, because in the Seattle area, in the Puget Sound area, when we think of reservations, or we think of nations, we think of actually pretty wealthy and well off. I mean, when we think of the Tulalipes, or we think of the Snoqualmies, or we think of the Muckleshoots or the Puyallups, from at least from the outside eye, these are very industrious tribal nations that we see. It started with casino, Offspark. It's infrastructure. It's so many things, but that's not necessarily representative as a whole. Because if you just get on I-90 and you go to places like Colville and all these other places, that's not necessarily what what life is like, so to speak. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. People aren't talking about Hoh River. They might say, where's Hoh River? Quileute. Where's Quileute? people would probably say that about Nooksack were it not for this human rights controversy. Yakima and Colville are massive reservations with people living in very, very rural places without access to services. And the vast majority of Indian country, both here in Washington and across the country, exists at poverty levels. And people don't talk about that because you're right. They see the casinos, they see things on commercials that make tribal communities appear vibrant, and they certainly are culturally. But it sort of ignores or obfuscates the deep poverty that the vast majority of indigenous people continue to live in this country. And what's really unfortunate is so much energy at the national level has been focused on, for example, Indian gaming over the last 30 or 40 years. But the flip side to that is not all tribes have that opportunity as a matter of location, location, location. And those that don't, their people are still living in poverty. And no one's talking about indigenous poverty. Nobody, not even indigenous people, at the levels that you need them to be talking about it to affect change.
Yeah, and I think that the last time really in a national discussion, it wasn't really national, but it was definitely was on a national radar, was during COVID, because you saw that like the reservations also were hitting this spike and this disparity around COVID and the impact of COVID across reservations across America. And then you kind of are able to peel back this layer there and understand how, you know, they're articulating the challenges that they're facing there in everyday healthcare, in everyday wellness that's now was compounded by COVID. And, you know, just being able to look at that and you're like, damn, you know, they doing bad like us. They doing even worse.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because there were ramifications to COVID in terms of the health and wellness of indigenous people. And I just fear that we haven't even, like I say, begun to see the ramifications of the decisions that have been made this year in what, 10 or 11 months, and how those decisions are going to affect indigenous peoples and their basic abilities to have food on the table and to try to live a healthy lifestyle.
So are Native communities being impacted by sweeping things in Washington, D.C., or is it more selective things by the new Secretary of the Interior, or is it some of both?
It's more the former, sweeping decisions under banner of things like Doge, or sweeping decisions caused by a federal government shutdown that is to some extent indiscriminatory, right? It affects everybody. But when those sweeping decisions get made, there's not consideration for the specific implications that they will have, for example, on indigenous people. And you have to recognize that promises have been made by the United States for the better part of the last 200 years to provide these things to indigenous people. You also have to recognize that indigenous people would rather not have to receive them from the federal government. They'd rather receive them on their own accord, but for a lot of reasons that's not possible. But sweeping decisions are made, thought is not given to treaty rights, to the federal trust responsibility, and really at the core to the dignity of indigenous people.
Right. And now, speaking of the federal government, there's an article out, I think, in the Seattle Times where it said that ICE has been reaching out to some of the tribes here to see if they can have a partnership to use some of the lockups that are on the reservations to house prisoners, I suppose, that ICE rounds up. Have you been clocking that story?
Yeah, I was mentioned in the Seattle Times story that aired over the weekend, and it concerned outreach by the United States Homeland Security Department to the Nisqually tribe, south of here, by an hour or so down near Olympia. They have their own tribal detention facility, and it appears someone in federal government reached out to somebody at the detention facility, unbeknownst to tribal leadership, and said, can we begin to house immigrants who we detained? And there's been a pretty immediate uproar. The story broke Friday night, hit Friday night and Saturday on socials. There's been a pretty immediate and large outcry against that type of story and that particular development. And I find it particularly ironic that the United States government would come to the first people of these lands to seek assistance in forcibly removing immigrants from this country. Feel me?
I feel you. What is you said there's a lot of backlash or uproar. I think that there's a certain segment that we expect to see that from, who's consistently been, backlash against what's going on with ICE. But has there also been backlash in other, native spaces or native community?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's really tribal people on social media, on text message. I got that story a bunch of times on text on Saturday. I opened up my socials. It was kind of blowing up, that story that Nina wrote. Just an immediate knee-jerk reaction, like, no way. We are not going to assist you in this dirty work. And again, the irony is not lost on Indigenous people what the United States is asking, at least the Nisqually tribe, to do.
Yeah. One more thing before we get out of here. 'Cause we talked about some things that are just like, man. My mom always says, I can't leave people in an affected state. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, we talked about the going down. We talked about the disparities on the reservation. Now we're talking about potential ICE and Nisqually. I want you to talk about your organization, Hoy, and the recent event, the homecoming event that you guys just had.
Yeah, we were so happy you guys were a part of it. You sent Jordan to take some photos. You have one of your interns writing a blog. Can't wait to read that. We had our second annual Welcome Home celebration down at 8th Generation headquarters in the Sodo, and you were there for the first one as well. And what we are now doing as a matter of tradition each year is welcoming home relatives who have fallen down, found themselves incarcerated, but picked themselves up by rehabilitating themselves, and then coming home against all odds, and by odds I mean 46% recidivism, but standing on their feet and getting right by themselves, and perhaps by the people they hurt, and certainly by their loved ones. And so this celebration involves a traditional wrapping of a blanket that we have developed with 8th Generation and a local artist named Louis Gong. The blanket depicts a butterfly. Butterfly, of course, represents transformation and metamorphosis, not just to Indigenous people, but a lot of people. We wrapped these relatives, we wrapped 5 of them last week in this butterfly blanket. We have an honor song that's sung for them, and then a procession of everybody in the room, and there were probably nearly 100 people, goes up to those individuals, whether they know them or not, shakes hand, gives a hug, shares some words. And it's the best feeling maybe I've had all year. It was certainly the best feeling I had last year, and it's a feeling I hope we replicate every single year.
Yeah, it's dope. We want to be able to support it every year too. So yeah, I would encourage people to be on the lookout across our social platforms. You guys are going to see the photos here soon, and I think we might actually repost last year's story, and definitely in the blog and things to come. Gabe Galanda, my good buddy, before we let you get out of here, man, I want you to look in that third camera right there and tell people how they can keep up with you.
Gabe Galanda, I'm an Indigenous rights lawyer at Galanda Broadman. You can reach me on our Facebook, on our Instagram. We don't do Twitter anymore for political reasons. And you can find me a little bit individually on those platforms, although I'm kind of weaning myself off of those things. But if you look hard enough on the internet, you will find me. You'll find my cell number, my email. You're welcome to hit me up.
All right. Gabe, man, I appreciate you taking the time. But most importantly, man, I appreciate you taking us on this journey with you over the last few years. You know, it's been transformational for us as a company, and it's also allowed us, insight. And I mean, even some of the spaces when we were making the documentary, those were sacred spaces. Those were special ceremonies and really sacred people and everything else. And so we're forever grateful.
Yeah, I just wanted to lift my hands to the whole Converge family, to you, to Trae, to Besa. You mentioned Ike, you mentioned Brady, Jordan, Eric, your family. I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, man. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to wrap up. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Hey, you want some ain't the same. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Acts on Stage presents Detroit 67. This award-winning story chronicles a family having a house party while the city is on fire. And a country dancing to the new sound as it finds itself in the dust of one of the most explosive periods in American history. It seems like it's all coming together and falling apart.
You talking that slick talk with me when I've been drinking?
I'm not trying to cause you any trouble. You've been this whole time as a bunch of trouble.
What the hell you doing in the truck?
This Seattle debut runs November 14th to the 23rd at Axon Stage Theater. Get down with the get down of Detroit 67.
Son of a nutcracker! Elf the Musical sparkles at Fifth Avenue Theater. Follow Buddy from the North Pole to New York City as he searches for his dad, who just might be on Santa's naughty list. With laughter, dazzling tap dancing, and plenty of holiday cheer, Elf the Musical is the perfect outing for your family. Don't miss the holiday spectacular. Elf the Musical at Fifth Avenue Theater, November 28th through December 28th. Get your tickets today at fifthavenue.org.
What better way to spend a Saturday than celebrating Black history? Join the Seattle Public Library on Saturday, December 13th at the Douglas Truth Branch to commemorate the 50th anniversary of his community-chosen name, honoring Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth. We will see you there.
All right, welcome back to the Day with Trae. You got Social Mari Salisbury. Big shout out and thank you to my good friend Gabe Galanda for coming in here, man, and shedding a lot of light and insights and everything else. And like I said, stay tuned to our social platforms and our blog so you can see the photos and everything from the home welcoming, the welcoming home ceremony from Hoy. I mean, it was dope, you know. And to the point, though, right, is that once you see it in the blog, we're gonna put in a video from last year, and you'll see that it's even a conversation in our community, African American community, the Black community. You know, how are we welcoming those home, our people home, who might have been coming out of incarceration? How are they welcomed home? Is it welcomed home just, you know, you're back on the block? Is it welcomed home and there's, you know, big community, and the community is now welcoming you but also setting the expectation for you? So it's really dope. I encourage everybody to check it out. But look, we're going to get out of here for today. Back tomorrow, and then of course Trayana is back next week. So that being said, go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.